So I want to begin a new project, and I've got this reference image, which is a JPEG, all there, all ready to go. And I've taken that from the folder on the P drive, but you can also get this off Myrtle. So if you're looking for it, it's Appendix 2, Architectural Plans, Zahns, Associates 8. So it was page 8 originally, that's why it's got that number. So I'm going to insert that shortly into my Revit project as a visual reference to draw over. But before we do that, we've got to start a new project. So how do you always start a new project if you don't have your own template? Exactly, that's good, yeah. As long as you remember that, don't ever use the others. They'll just create work for you, and you don't want that. So architectural template every time until you make your own template. One day they'll make an interior design template, but does anyone stick I in front of their layer names for interiors? No, I've never met an interior designer that does. They all put A for architecture, which tells you something that's basically following the architectural industry. Okay, so it's going very slowly today, so I'll just give it a moment, and then okay, and let you know that it normally won't take this long on your own computer. I think because I'm recording and broadcasting over a network, it's very slow. But this is just ridiculously slow. It would normally, even doing all those things, be 10 times faster than this, so there's something going wrong with the network. It's a joke, yeah. I mean, this is slower. Literally 20 years ago, it was faster. There's just something very bizarre with IT at the moment. Yeah, I know. It's unbelievable. Yeah. Well, we've got the fastest cables in Australia between Ultimo and here.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, they've got this massive connection. They showed it to me a while ago. This huge thing, and yeah. Goes into that room. Yeah, oh, it's all underground. But, yeah. Okay, so look, that part when the network's slow is where it'll really slow down, but once you get that open, it won't be as slow. So if you have the same problem as I've had, just be patient, and once it gets the file open, then it'll work normally from then on, because it's just working locally at that point. And so now, before I even draw anything, and you'll see me doing this all the time, and you might just be doing it out of habit, but it's good again to think about why you're doing these things. So I'm going to duplicate my ground floor plan by right-clicking, duplicate view, and then duplicate. Don't ever be afraid to duplicate floor plans. You can have as many copies of them as you like, and it's for your benefit that you're doing this. It makes your life easier when you have different copies of those views to do different things. So I've right-clicked on my copy of my ground floor plan now, so that I can rename it. And with 2019, you can double-click to rename as well, like I'm doing there. So ground floor DWG or something, just to let you know that there's a reference inserted. So then to insert my image, on the Insert tab, I'll go to Image and find P drive, and this is where again it might slow down a little bit. and then I'll click place it. So I'm not worried about where I place it to start with, because I'm going to move it afterwards. So now what will be the next thing? We've inserted a floor plan that's come from another program. So what do we need to do to start working with it in a CAD program like this, or Revit? How do we know if it's the right size? Or is it going to be the right size to start with? Do you think? It can be. Sometimes it will be the right size without you having to do anything. But you've got to be very lucky. It means that it would have to come from AutoCAD and all be set up at the right size. And we know that this hasn't come from AutoCAD, so it's not the right size. And you should assume that it won't be the right size. So you have to scale it. So I've selected the image. You can see it's highlighted, and I'll click the scale button. And whenever you want to use that scale tool, you need to look for a measurement, and generally a longer measurement is better. So we've got these two boundaries, which are both about the same length, and they're both really good candidates for scaling. So the boundary here is 25 metres, 160, so that's perfect. And so I'll click onto one corner of the boundary, and then come across and click onto the other end of that line or that boundary edge that I'm trying to measure. So 2 points. And then I can type in the size I want it to be, which we can see there is 25160. Oops. Now, I'll press enter, and yeah, I thought I'd done something, what I put in there. So if you can't see the numbers that you're typing, zoom out while you're doing that and you'll find them. And you can see there I just put a dash at the end, my mistake. So now I can see 25160, enter, and it's changed size. So I'm going to then drag it so that it's centered again inside my 4 elevation symbols, just by eye, very roughly. And then to make sure that it's the right size, it doesn't hurt to measure using the measuring tool and check that that edge or that boundary is the length you think it should be. And get into the habit of zooming in if you're not doing that. I see a lot of people try to do all their work zoomed out like this and wonder why nothing's very accurate. The programs let you zoom in to make it accurate, so do that. And so then you can see the measurement up here. It tells me is 25147. Do you think that's close enough? If we're trying to make it 25160 and it's 25147, it's off by 13 mil. Is that okay? Do you think? Yeah, it's absolutely fine. You're lucky if builders are going to build that accurately anyway, but with an image like this, it's a JPEG. So it's never going to be accurate to the nearest 10 mil or what we're doing. So that's absolutely fine. It's within 13 mil or even 50 mil. That's okay. So I've got my plan. It's the right size. So I'm just going to select it again, click on pin up here to lock it so it doesn't move. And I'll do the next bit a little bit quicker. I'm going to come back to the architecture tab and just draw some reference planes. Just for the main edges. I'm not going to do them for every wall. Just for these straight walls at either end. Okay, so I've done those 2 vertical straight walls, so I'll do the horizontal ones now in the same way. So just tracing the edges by eye. And I'm just dragging the ends out so they stick out from the building. I'm not going to worry about that diagonal one yet. So again, just drawing the straight ones. But even just with those, now if I go back to the original ground floor, we can see those reference planes. And it's not just in your floor plans. If you go to an elevation, again, we can see those reference planes. So in all of our views now, we know roughly how big the building is. Right? And that's why the reference planes are important. So I'll just make a start on the walls, and then I'll give you some time to try these things, and we'll pick it up again in a minute. So, okay, so now that I've got the reference planes on the outside of the building, I'm going to use the measuring tool here, just up at the top there on the quick access bar, and then pick points to measure the inner part of that wall. And I'll just do that a couple of times so you can see. So the measurement it gave me is about 550. It's 556. So 550 is okay. I'll just do it again over here. So notice I'm not trying to get the outer part. That's a pier that sits really outside the main line of the exterior wall. So we'll do the piers at the end. But I want to know roughly how big they are as well. So they're, what, 140? So let's say we'll round that off to 150. And then again, that inner wall is about 550. Okay, so with those measurements now, I'll come back and, well, actually, I'm just going to show you one little trick first before I draw my wall. Has anyone tried to offset a reference plane? Yeah, you may. At some point, you're going to try it. On the Modify tab, any of you who know AutoCAD or even, is there anything like this in SketchUp? Probably not. But offset is a great command that you have in Revit under Modify. But if you try to pick a reference plane, it won't let you. Works with everything else, but reference planes are fussy. I don't know why, but it doesn't work with them. You can still offset reference planes, but you do that instead using the same tool you use to draw them. Use the reference plane tool, and you have to use this pick lines option up here, and then you put the offset distance in on the command line. It's only reference planes that you need to do that. So I'm going to pick that reference plane, and then I'll change the distance to 550 now, and then pick the new one at the bottom. So now I just want to draw a few walls in just to get you started with that. So in the video you'll see that I spent some time on, in the other video, I spent some time on the levels before doing the walls. And that's quite a standard process to set up the outside of the building using reference planes, then think about the heights using levels. I'm going to skip that step for now. This is to show you that you can do things in different orders. So I'm going to come back to my ground floor plan and draw a wall. Just clicking on the wall tool there, walls architectural, or just click on the top of the button there, which gives you that. So I've got my generic 100, 200, 300 mil walls. Then if you remember how to make a new wall thickness starting with one of those, what do you do when you want to change the properties of these walls? Exactly, that's the one you should be remembering. So edit type, really important. So there, I've chosen the generic 300 mil. I want to start with that one. Then I'm going to go to edit type. So what's next if you want to make a new kind of wall? Yeah, or you could rename it. You could, actually, that would work. But I want to keep the 300 one. So instead of that, I'll duplicate. Yeah, but it's the right idea. Rename and duplicate are similar. So yeah, I'll duplicate, and that'll keep the 300. And I'm just going to call this generic 550 mil wall. Right, I've given that a new name, but how thick is this wall? So until I say 300? Exactly, that's right, spot on. That's exactly what I was after. So yeah, so the width here, it still tells us it's 300, but it's greyed out. So how do we change that thickness? Exactly. Click on the edit button above. And these walls are nice to work with. They're simple. They've only got the one layer. In other words, that one thickness, which I can just change now to 550. So that's good. So if you're starting to remember those things, that's really good. So I'll click OK. And then I can change the height to, well, we'll just make it level 1 for now. And then the location line. So here we can use either exterior or interior because we know where both of those things are. We've got the two reference planes showing us the bottom one is the interior, the top, the one above is the exterior. But since you're doing interior design, we may as well use finished face interior. And that'll often be the case. When you're taking your measurements for an interiors project, you tend to measure from the inside of the wall. So I've got finished face interior, so I'm going to draw on that bottom reference plane, coming across to the right, and you can see we've got a perfect 550mm wall. Right, now I'm just going to do a couple more, and I'll give you plenty of time to try all of this. So what I really wanted to show you now is the piers. So these projections, which are really important because that gives you the look of the building, the arrangement of the windows, and the way that they're divided up into those bays that are defined by the piers. That's really important. And again, if you do it in this way, that I've worked out through, having the pain of doing it in different ways, it'll work really well for you. So again, using the wall tool, I need a 150mm wall now. So just like I did before, edit type, duplicate, give the new name, generic 150mm wall this time, edit to change the structure, and I'll change the thickness to 150. It's still a finished face interior, which is what I want. So I'm then going to click on the plan. Sorry, just going over the image there. I'm not going to worry about getting accurate measurements for the two sides here. I'm just going to do it by eye, where I think that pier begins. Coming over to the right, and I can finish it on the other side. But I'll show you what will happen if I'd gone the other way. If I started over here and then went to the left, the wall's going inside my building. So what could you do to fix it, to make it go the other way? Sorry? Spacebar, good, yes, that's right. Now, if you forget these things, it does tell you on the screen. What I was hoping is that, well, I was actually hoping no one would say the other thing, but if you thought about the location line, you're thinking in kind of the right way, but that's not what you should be doing here. So don't use location line just to flip your walls. Have a look down on the status bar, this thing down here, and it tells you space flips orientation. And that's really important because we want the exterior side to still be on the outside. So space, yeah, much better than using the location line. And there we are. So you can do all of the piers like that. In other words, these projections, don't try and break your wall up and have it getting thicker where it sticks out like it does all the way along there. You can see there's all these projections. Again, just add extra walls over the top of that main wall line. And trust me, it will work much better for you anytime you've got a building like this, and there are plenty of them in Sydney exactly like this. So there, just to finish up, I'll bring that wall back to the right, and I'm not even going to worry about having a reference plane to draw this little wall here. I would just eyeball it. So again, with the wall tool, I'll use the 150mm again. No, not what I was saying, the 550. So that's the last thing I want to show you. Here in properties, I've made that already. So when I scroll down, I can see there's my 550mm wall. I'll start on the corner there, because that's with finished face interior. That's the inside of our space, of course. Down to the left. It's going to the wrong side, so remember, don't try and change your location line. Use space instead. And take it to there. And so I can't help it, just in case you do get to this point and you get stuck. The next thing, just to keep it accurate, and accurate is always easier when you're working on the model later. I'm going to offset these using that same reference plane tool, pick lines, and I'll offset 150 and then 550 again, just so you can see that. It will make it much easier for you. So coming back to here. Oh no, this one's not 550, sorry, so we're going to check that. So that one, sorry, is, let's say 400. It says 420 there, but I think 400, yeah, 400 should be okay. So, okay, so the reference plane is in the wrong position, but the brilliant thing about Revit is that when you select something like a reference plane, you should be able to find the dimension to the next one. I'll change that to 400. Actually, that's, yeah, it's slightly angled. Now, this would be real, but we don't really care about that, so I'm going to make it 420. That's close enough. So, again, now I can draw one last wall, and I'll definitely finish after that. So, here again, I don't have a 420 wall. So, edit type, duplicate. You'll get used to doing this because you do it so often. Okay, so a really good trick there, instead of trying to draw from the end of this diagonal wall, it's probably easier to draw from somewhere else on that reference plane and come up and finish before that angled wall, and that just keeps it straight. And then to join them together, use trim extend to corner. Let's pick those two walls. Right, so again, for you, the interior is the most important thing. So notice how I've left out all of those projections. So later we'll add thinner walls that wrap all around this corner. And again, down here, and on the corner down here. But again, you're trying to get these nice long walls that will work really well for your interior space. All the way along there, you should do another wall once you've worked out what the thickness should be. And again, that's easily the best setup you can do for an interior project, even for a full architectural project. It's definitely the way you should do it, but for interiors, it'll make a huge difference. So let me know if you've got any questions about that, but otherwise I want to give you plenty of time to try and put into practice. But again, even if you've done some of those things, hopefully that'll make it a bit clearer why in those videos I was doing it in that way. So I'll give you some time anyway to try that.